Good morning, folks. Welcome to No Plan B. I'm Jean Falacara. Today I have a specific guest. We're going to talk about performance and neuroscience. Hey, Frank. There we go. So, in Dr. Roman Velasquez is a fight sport neurocognitive efficiency work. Good day, Doc. How are you? I'm fantastic. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being here today. It's a fantastic opportunity for me to learn more about what you do, because I've been watching everything you've been doing, and I'm very curious. You apply neuroscience to performance, and this is what I like.
I know. Actually, let me tell you first, thank you for having me. I really love what you do. I think it's fascinating. You're one of the top 5 role models that I have in terms of neuromuscular abilities. And
Whoa!
Wow! Yeah, you're just a
Thank you. Wow! Thank you. Thank you. I'm very honored to hear this. It's my honor, and it's my pleasure to have you today. You've been in the Marine Corps. You've been boxing, tactical, law enforcement. You've done neuroscience. You're a doctor. You're certified in neurobiology. You have a certification in mindfulness, neurofeedback, and sport visualization, which I love, because I think that everything starts from there. And you wrote a book.
Yes. I'm an author too, and my latest book is a one-of-a-kind, the Fight Sport Neurocognitive Performance Training. I just got back in town, so I'm behind on all my mail and stuff like that. When we end, send me your address, because I want to send you a copy of the book.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah. Because I was like getting one in Boston from Amazon.com. And because I'm very curious to see what you wrote in that book, and but we're going to talk about everything today. The topic that I want to share with you and our audience today is how athletes rewire their brain to win. And this is the subject of your book, and I've seen you doing extraordinary things with boxing and MMA fighters. So before we go too far into those details, I'm just going to want to remind our audience first. Thank you for joining, guys. As always, it's a pleasure to have you and to see you here. Yeah. When you have questions, I would appreciate that you use the question mark that we have so we can answer them, because most of the time it's so hard to see questions going too fast.
Very fast.
And we don't have the time. Yeah, very fast. Then unfortunately, it's difficult to keep up with everything that is asked, but we reply to everything either by messages or directly on during the show. So Dr. Roman Velasquez is here today. Is a fight sport neurocognitive efficiency coach, and is a doctor. Is certified in neurobiology. Why don't you talk about your parkour? The best way to introduce somebody is to ask him to introduce himself.
Well, I think you did a really good job. I've been first of all, I'm from El Paso, Texas. So I bring my staff here in the Southwest. However, we work with fighters from around the globe, around the world. And so my doctorate is in leadership, and I've concentrated a lot of my research work and focus on human performance. I do have a postdoctoral certification in neurobiology. And again, the focus has been on human performance. I did serve in the United States Marine Corps for about 12 years. Is in tactical law enforcement, as well as diver in criminal justice. Yeah. So that gave me a really good background. I was in boxing in the Marine Corps as well, and was in wrestling in high school. So the sport has always been in my blood, my DNA. So yeah. And the way we started is, and I say we because I have a small team with me, but the way I started this is, I was basically doing workshops and seminars for executive corporates on using neuroscience and leadership.
Okay.
Yeah, and one
which becomes a big trend now. Actually, you see more and more
of that. Yeah, they're starting to realize that we are basically driven a lot by habits when it comes to leadership and leading other people. But so during that time, about almost 5-6 years ago, I was contacted by a world boxing champion and wanted to work with me on some mindfulness and visualization techniques for his upcoming fight. And that's it just made no sense that I move into that field since I love the sport. I've prepared for that in that pathway. So it was a no-brainer to get into that.
So you wanted to prepare others because you understood the concept of using your brain to get into better performance, and of course, the whole concept of what you wanted to bring was like to understand how to react to things faster than others. I guess this is
Right.
your and try to, but you're going to explain that in deep details, to shut down the amygdala, I would guess, because this is what it actually puts us most of the time in danger or serious situation, or allow us to escape as well, of course. But so I recently had the MMA fighter here, Jan McCall. Yeah, very interesting. That this is some things I want to share with you. I see more and more these fighters and people in the elite sport kind of derivating to psychedelic therapies and things like that. Do you know why is that? Is there a relationship between what they're getting in their head as shocks and things like that, and trying to escape that? Or
I think there's several reasons that I believe are happening, taking place over the years. Number one is they understand that mental strength is very important, equivalent to physical strength. If mental fatigue really causes a lot of failures in sports, it's not all physical, but mental fatigue does cause a lot. So they're starting to realize that. The other thing that's very important is that they're starting to understand that there are sport neurocognitive performance specialists like me out there around the world that specialize in rewiring neural networks to perform better.
Okay, that's one.
Yeah. So you have a question about that?
Yeah, that's one. So the whole concept of everything is always going back to neuroplasticity, right?
Yes. Yeah. So since we've been working with elite level professional fighters from the UFC and in boxing, we've discovered that even though every brain is wired uniquely, obviously, which gives us our uniqueness, we've discovered that there are several commonalities that as an athlete you must have. So we've designed these protocols, and we designed a 10-point assessment system that gives us a starting point to customize a protocol for an athlete. So
what are they, doctor? Yeah, those points, can you share them with us?
Yes, absolutely. Because I think that this is the basis of our conversation today, so that people can get a really good understanding of what is it that we do starting from the get-go. So the number one component that we see out there is the neurovisual and brain processing speed. The visual aspect of all the sensory features and receptors that we have in our human body, 80% of them are visual. So the visual cortex, the backside of our brain, holds the most real estate in the brain. So it makes sense that vision is so important in any type of sport that's out there. So that's one that we take a look at, the way the brain processes this incoming information. And we use the latest in neuroscience technology to do these things. The other thing that's common is the sequential, the working memory, the computational loads, and the sequencing processing of that information. You see, everything boils down. It starts with the incoming information, the way the brain processes that information, and all the various aspects to that information, such as hand and eye coordination. This is very important in any type of sports. Peripheral visual acuity.
I was bringing that, yes, because all the information, we're getting a lot, but we're not treating all the same way, yes.
It all has different segments that come into play neurally for your neural networks. And the retina, the vision doesn't live in the eyes. Vision lives in the brain. The retina is brain tissue. And that's where all this information, about 310 gigabytes of information per second, are flooding into your brain. The brain has a gating process of what it wants to pay attention to, what it wants to focus on to. That's where the mind comes in, you know. So hand-eye coordination is very important. One of the other ones that we take a look at in terms of assessment, peripheral visual acuity. Now, all of these visual aspects, visual acuity, are very sport relevant when it comes to our training. In other words, I would not train with the same protocols for a football player that I would for an MMA fighter, even though these are common, but the difference is the reaction and the way the body is moved, the dynamic of the body.
Yes, and as well, I guess the environment that is not playing in the smallest environment, like MMA fighter and football player in a big area where the vision has to be far away and not that close all the time. Yeah,
exactly. So that's the and I love the way you think, because absolutely in a field environment you need what is known as near far focus. But near far focus also works even in an enclosed environment, because if I step back and you don't see my hand, it's up here, and this hand, there's a difference in space and time. So if you're keeping a focus here on this hand, but this hand comes in close to you, that is a near far focus issue as well. And it happens, it happens within milliseconds. So we work with milliseconds. That's what we call minding the gap. The gap is to shorten that gap in time. If it takes me 600 milliseconds to react to a peripheral shot, and that fighter averages a 300 millisecond shot, I'm going to get hit all the time.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of the periphery and the reaction time. So that's the gap. So if I can get an athlete, and that's just one of our requirements, that we measure everything from the assessment all the way through that, and we show that progress. We want athletes. We've had professional fighters that are at elite level that are reacting at 600 milliseconds.
But let's put it in perspective. You say that's slow, but let's put it in perspective. When we blink an eye, it's 1.2 seconds or something like that.
Something like that. And to give you a perspective, like on from a combative situation with MMA, when an average bar fight, average Joe in a bar fight throws a punch at about 1.5 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
interesting.
So it's kind of slow in terms of professional elite fighters, because an average speed of a professional elite fighter, a punch comes within 200 milliseconds and 400 milliseconds.
3 times faster, minimum. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
It's not even a blink of an eye. A blink of an eye, you get hit twice.
Yeah, that's it. You're gonna keep it open. It turns black after.
So we want to measure those things, and we want to make sure that our athletes know exactly that. Listen, you're slow. I know you've been fighting for all your life, and you're a professional and whatnot, but when it comes to peripheral vision and your reaction time, you're slow. Or near far focus, or split attention. These are all the topics that we discovered are very commonplace to any type of athlete, specifically in combat sports. Split attention. Why is that important? That's important because when you have several targets at you, your eyes have to be able to split their attention to four different threats. It would be
fists, to react,
elbows, legs, knees, feet. So that's important. The other important is cognitive flexibility, having the ability to task switch without hesitating, without error-prone execution. If you hesitate, it could be the end of the fight. One hesitation, one error-prone movement, it could be the end of the fight. If you cannot pass switch, which is known as cognitive flexibility in a fight, what is cognitive flexibility? It's the ability of an athlete to decipher information, react to the information, be responsive, but be also on the attack with information flawless.
And we're talking in milliseconds again.
Milliseconds, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where mental flow comes in. To be in the zone. What does to be in the zone means? It means all these things tied together. You know, we also do the EEG neuro meditation for the visualization process, and the EEG mental flow to prime neural networks for mental flow. All these things have neural circuitry in the brain that needs to be developed, and we show the metrics for that. Metrics are very important. You can't train if you can't measure it. You know, you have to measure it.
But yeah, you have to measure it. It's a difficulty now to when you go into the flow to get some sort of neurofeedback or biofeedback to explain exactly what is going on there. So you have those metrics that will say, okay, this guy is so into it that he gets into flow, and now is improving his performances by reducing the time of response and everything. So he is in the flow. This is like the way you work there.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything comes in. I think we've designed our protocols from getting feedback from some of the world's best fighters out there. When we train with them, it's a learning process. We share knowledge in that, and so we're a knowledge-centric entity in that we learn every day. Every training session is a learning session for us. We take copious notes, what works, what doesn't work, and that has allowed us to have this science-based protocol, but be creative at the same time. What a better way, what better knowledge than the knowledge of a fighter that gets in there and does the work himself or herself. You know, that's invaluable. That's invaluable. And if you could put it, that type of knowledge is also known as tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is very hard to articulate because it's embodied in the body. You felt it. You can't explain how the body reacts and how your body works, and you can't talk about it in a very eloquent and fluent manner. If you are able to do that, you'll be one of the best world speakers there is out there.
True.
Because it's hard to articulate, but once you decipher some of its code, we learn from that, and we help others with that might be having difficulties in this areas of visual brain processing, mind-body integration.
So in the process of preparing those guys to get into the flow, you're using EEG. You said ECG, EEG. Okay. I remember having worked a lot with Halo Neuro, this brain stimulator. This it's more transcranial direct stimulation. Are these type of technology that you're going to use or you're using still or not at all?
Yes, absolutely. Transcranial stimulation. The ones that really had their game on is Halo Sport.
Yeah, I was testing their unit. It's a tremendous unit. Honestly, so far I think they went bankrupt. The company, I think.
Yeah. So somebody else bought it. I don't know what they're gonna do with it.
They do. Yeah, sorry, Doc. Somebody took over the patents and everything, and they're doing the same concept, but only for medical application. They're trying to work on obsessive compulsive disorders and stuff like that. So they're still doing the type of tool they had before, but it's not for the public anymore. It's more for research. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how Halo. Yeah, that's how Halo Sport started. The founder of Halo Sport was one of the pioneers in transcranial stimulation from the medical perspective of it. So it does have a lot of benefits. There's a lot of white papers, peer-reviewed articles, research papers on that, on its efficiency. So we use that as well. One of the things that I wanted to really touch on is, and for the audience to understand, is that the sport neurocognitive efficiency field industry is kind of like a toddler right now of an industry. It is where strength and conditioning was about 15 years ago. 15 years ago, if an athlete got hurt, he went to strength and conditioning therapist.
True. Yeah.
Nowadays, to get him back up online, nowadays, every elite level athlete has a strength and conditioning coach. It's a must. You have to strengthen your body in very specific ways.
In specific ways. Is that because neuroscience, of course, it's more than 50 years, but it's still a new science, and more we see neuroscience applied to everything. And I think it was about time to see neuroscience applied to sport, of course. So we need people like you to explain that and to bring that into the sport industry, because when you know what your brain is doing, of course, you're going to perform better. And to perform better in that sense, you need training, you need preparation, you need some sort of alignment of your brain. I've seen a video where you had this athlete that had the broken ankle, I think, or
Yeah.
broke. Yeah. Okay. Can you explain how did you bring him back to performance and or to the elite level he was before? Because this is what you do, actually. You help also people that have injuries, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
First of all, let me just.
Yeah.
I'm not a strength.
Oh, we didn't. Yeah. We didn't finish on the point.
But yeah, the athlete, Tim Means, he fights UFC. He's been around for quite some time. He's an elite level athlete, very well known, very much respected. He broke his ankle in a very freakish way on a fight about 4 years ago or something like that. But he was out for a year. During that time, he contacted us, and he wanted us to work on his neurocognitive efficiency, obviously. And obviously, he has a really good strength and conditioning coach out of DZ Fun Theory out of Albuquerque, and he worked with him as well. But one of the things that we did with Tim Means is that we used for every type of drill that we had with him, we implemented the synaptic strobe glasses. These goggles flicker, okay? And so what it does, it disrupts the vision, right? So it tells the visual cortex something is wrong. So neurally, the brain starts to compensate for those deficiencies in vision and starts to grab other neural networks that could compensate for that. One of the things that the body does, if you are recovering from an injury, let's say a foot injury, an ankle injury, your whole sensory and your body and your brain says and knows you have an injury. So it overcompensates certain movements for you not to hurt it any further. It turns out, and there's a really good research study from the University of Chicago, I believe, with the synaptics. It turns out that the synaptic strobes are really good to confuse the brain in various ways. And one of this is it doesn't allow the brain to overcompensate for an injured part.
Can we trick our brain to say we're not injured?
In movements, because it's starting, the brain is trying to focus on the deficiency of the flickering of the vision. Okay, so it starts to recruit neural networks to have to overcompensate for those visual deficiencies. When you take those glasses off, you have these neural networks that have already been recruited by the brain to overcompensate, which gives you an elevated performance level. You're not, your eyes are not the same. Your visual cortex is not the same. You just elevated. So if you use that for a period of time, and we have exact protocols on how to use it specifically, your brain, your neural visual, and your processing speed is at a much higher level. Absolutely.
Okay, let me interrupt you for 1 second, because I want to be precise on that tool. I love it, and I'm going to tell you about something else right after that.
Okay.
Do you have the eyes closed when you put those goggles, or open?
No,
and open. The second, they're open, and the stimulation by those light is LED light or DL, or what kind of source is it? Colored, white, blue?
Yeah,
all spectrum?
no, it's they're dark. They look like sunglasses. Okay,
Okay.
and they're not here. They're in the other room. But so what they do, the lens is liquid filled. So the lens gives you like a blinking effect. It's kind of like
Okay.
you're blinking several times. So if you blink several times right now, that's the way it looks. So the brain thinks something is wrong with the eyes.
True.
So it'll start to overcompensate for that, for those deficiencies. And I mean the difference, and that's just one of the technologies. The difference, that it makes is just it's kind of like if you put a weighted vest on and you
Yeah.
use it for an hour. When you take it off, you're gonna feel light.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
be
You sound like
faster.
you have no. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Same,
Uh,
same concept.
Same thing for the concept. Have you heard about? Have you ever seen these? It's a prototype. Okay.
Oh no.
I'm testing these.
Oh,
It's called
nice.
Neurovisor.
Okay.
Stimulation by lights like that in different
Okay.
phase. And I'm surprised. I'm on my third day of testing. You can get into the zone in less than 11 minutes, and you can trick your brain for everything. Even if your mood is too down,
Uh-huh.
you can raise your mood to a level. So there is a lot of application. I'm digging into it. I'm very
Nice.
surprised by the effect. But the question was because on this one, of course, you have eyes closed because the light is pretty
That's light.
strong, but it goes through. But the stimulation by light flashes in a certain pattern has an effect on the brain that is tremendous. So yeah, so I'll share with you some information on that. It's tremendous.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know that light therapy, certain types of light have a strong effect on the brain and the human mind. I haven't explored too much on that. I know that there's various technologies out there like the brain tap too, that does
Yeah,
the blue light and
exactly. I do. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah. There you go.
yeah. This one is more into I would say like research level where the stimulation is kind of higher level. I use BrainTap to relax a lot or for
Yes.
meditation, and I love it. Of
Yes.
course, yeah.
Absolutely. And every athlete needs that for
They use
performance.
it.
The
Yeah.
recovery, the recovery,
Oh yeah.
the recovery piece to any athlete is a performance enhancement activity. Absolutely.
This is kind of interesting. I want to learn more about your system. I've seen you also using light kind of light stimulation on vast like points and kind of other article that were kind of sort of lights. What do you do with that?
Yeah. So we use that part of the protocols, specifically to address focus factors,
Okay.
accuracy factors, timing, efficiency, and speed factors. Um, Obviously, when you see certain like we have a bodysuit that's got the lights on, we'll put the lights also in our hands too. We'll move around, and these lights have a certain randomness to it that there's no way that you can remember the certain randomness. And we don't want nobody
Okay.
to remember the certain randomness. But every time that there's a certain color of light, you obviously do some sort of activity, some sort of task. Either you hit with the left, you hit with the right. For example,
Oh,
if you have a blue light means that you jab that blue light, while others are decoys. Okay, but if you have a red light, then you have a right. If you have a yellow light, you'll have a hook. So all that is cognitive
yeah.
flexibility that you have
Wow.
to think quickly,
Yeah.
which obviously works on the brain processing speed and the information processing speed and the mind body connection to the reaction speed. So that's part of what we do. The other thing that we use with lights is to measure the peripheral, the near far focus, the split attention with the reaction time. Okay, we're at like for example a situation where we might have somebody that has a near far focus deficiency, and it's obviously because of the reaction times are slow. We put more focus into that, and we make it dynamic. By that I mean that we put the lights on a bar, and I'm handling the lights and I'm moving the lights, okay, to make it more difficult for the athlete. And obviously, everything that we do has to be sport relevant. How does it apply to this sport? Even though all those factors, how does it apply to this sport?
Yeah.
You know, how does it apply to it? How does it go hand in hand with their movement, with their natural movement inside that cage, inside that boxing? You know, it's
And how
very,
yeah, that's it. And you have to make them improve. You were talking about somebody has a deficiency in a certain field. So you make them learning that pattern, that type of task to get better. So you're just saying that we can change our brain, we can modulate your brain, we can rewire your brain. This is what you explain in your book, actually.
Absolutely. You know, and the psychology piece, the psyche piece, you know, I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of psychology, sports psychology books out there that teach you how to be mentally strong, that will prepare you psychologically. If you're prepared psychologically, that's 50% of it. The other 50% is the performance aspect. And if your brain doesn't have the neural wiring to perform, you would always be performing at a certain level.
True. You can be motivated as you want. If you don't have the muscular ability, you're not going to make it. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll fall short. You'll fall short.
Yeah.
You know, so what we give the athlete a competitive advantage over someone that doesn't do this type of training. So that's why I say that the industry is kind of like a toddler. In the near future, and it's already happening. It's already happening. In the near future, every elite level athlete is going to have a neurocognitive specialist.
I agree.
They have.
I agree. Yeah. So we're gonna call you Dr. Striatium, the specialist of basal ganglia.
Yeah, the basal ganglia. That's all our habits. The neural habits.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So you should patent that name. Fits perfectly.
Fits perfectly. Yeah.
You said some things that was very interesting. I read. I'm just going to read it back. You said your brain is a relentless shifter, constantly rewriting its own circuitry, and because your experiences are unique, so are the vast, detailed, and you keep going.
Yeah, so that's a quote. That's a quote from I got that from Dr. David Eagleman. He's a neuroscience, a predominant neuroscientist, best-selling author too. He's out of Albuquerque as well. Absolutely, these neural networks that we have in the brain's natural neuroplasticity process are constantly, and they're very relentless, and they're shapeshifters. They continually are in motion, in a dynamic motion all throughout our lives. They keep rewiring. The other fascinating thing is that we now know that the brain makes new neural connections in terms of new neurons by a process called neurogenesis, right? So these neurons actually grow.
At night.
Yeah.
Mainly at night when we sleep. And years ago, we were thinking that you were born with the same amount of neurons, so that this is the big revolution.
They die.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but it's so not true. So, and this is what you leverage on, actually.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we leverage on, because athletes exercise so much that exercise is a big factor in neurogenesis. Okay. And that's obviously, there's a lot of research done. And the one that leads the pack on that research a few years ago was Dr. Wendy Suzuki, neuroscientist out of New York University. You know, she's got a really good, nice book out too, as well. But yeah, absolutely. So there's neuroplasticity, there's structural plasticity, and there's functional plasticity as well. We work with fighters. We know right off the bat some of the functions that they'll do in some of the drills is that we know that there might be something wrong, such as a concussion. Most concussions occur during sparring, inside the gym training, not on fights, but
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, because of the frequency of the sparring that take place before a fight, right? So this concussion thing is the spectrum to concussion. There's no really one concussion treatment specialist.
No.
A concussion takes a variety of people, variety of professionals to treat you for that concussion recovery. Very, very much real. And we could see it right off the bat with some of the technology that we have in the processing speed. We could see there's an actual decline all of a sudden, of the way the brain is processing information, almost downright clumsiness, to the movements type of thing. So those are very important things when you mention neuroplasticity and functional and structural plasticity, where the brain is so unique that it learns to rewire itself. If you damage one part of the brain and it's irreparable, that's damaged, the brain will eventually learn, and it's quicker through the therapy, right, and the training, that it learns to rewire itself to do that, to compensate for that. They're unique ways.
Yeah, in unique ways and in another part of the brain. This is super interesting. In your opinion, doctor, people are always saying the mind is different than the brain, getting to work into the mind-body or brain-body connection. What's your take on that? Well, what do you think? Is there a different
separation?
Yeah, separation, or we're just like I think we're just one, but
I think there is a separation in terms of when I think about the mind, I think about consciousness. I think about, from a quantum physical perspective, I think about this energy force that's part of everything else. What spiritual adepts will call this oneness of things, the quantum field, this unified field where we exist from a mind perspective. And this mind is this life force that's within us. Some people believe that our energy force, our soul, is seated in right here in the middle of our third eye. That's conscious stuff like that. I haven't seen it. I don't know. I don't think that anybody will ever prove it.
I don't think so.
But I think that's the separation. The other piece to it is our biology, our body. The machines that we've come to invade. That we grow with. From birth, and this biology, this neurobiology, is separate from this force. But this force is the essence of what we do.
Yeah. We are energy, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
I can feel that energy all the way over.
Yeah, man. That I am full of energy. And bringing me back to what you said before, I'm so intrigued about this 200 milliseconds split and reaction. Is there any limits between, because, we are energy and everything we do is electrical or chemical converted into electrical signal and the reverse, okay? Is there a limit about those 200 milliseconds of reaction that you're trying to reduce all the time because of the electrochemical reaction that is required to make a movement or to have more speed or to contract a muscle or something like that? Will we reach a certain limit, or we have no limits?
I believe that we are, number one, we are on an upward curve in human performance. I believe that our bodies are capable of doing fascinating and amazing stuff. It's the 4-minute mile, right? Nobody would run a 4-minute mile until it was broken, right? That record. Everybody started to break that record, right? So that leads us to believe that, it leads me to believe that there is this potential, this potentiality of human performance, that I think it will never plateau. It'll keep going. It'll keep going.
We're on that curve, as you said. It will keep going, but probably we're going to not increase the same. We're not going to be ramping the same way we've been ramping in the last 50 years, but we're going to still go further and further. Of course, not without dreaming about, body parts enhancement or help for whatever, probably yes, we're gonna be always stronger, faster, better than we're
I think
doing
so.
at the end of the day. Yeah,
I think
I
so.
agree. Yeah, it's true.
That's why we're so fascinated. We're so fascinated with the superheroes, the Marvel, you know,
True.
the Superman, the Batman. There's
Yeah.
something inside of us that archetypes, that it's within our DNA, with our genetic code. I think that we come from a very special place. The human DNA and the genetics come from a very special gift in the universe that
Of course.
is unlimited.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is beautiful what you said. Now it gives a brief for humanity, like
Yeah, and you have
belief.
that.
Yeah.
You have that gift.
Thank you.
I love that. Oh my God.
I'm trying.
You are seriously one of the, super people on here.
I'm gonna be the super cyborg then.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? This is the thing. When I started to do those movements and these things, I was just like trying to tell people that I'm not young. I'm not 20. And people were saying it's impossible. Only kids can do that. You're too old to do these things. I'm just showing people that when you want to do some things, we have this machine that is our body that you can just build on it and just rewire your brain to be able to use that body in a way that you're going to be performing and performing always better and better and better. And and this gives, and for me, it's just a language for the kids that are following, because we see many people with no no willing to perform, not willing to do sports and stuff like that. I just would like to tell this guy, everything is possible. Everything is put the energy into it, put your brain into it, and you're gonna make it. Yeah. So, and when I see what you're doing, imagine that if we had a ton of people, a ton of doctors like you, helping this humanity to get to this high level performance, because the higher you go, the more you want to go higher. It's kind of auto motivation. I don't think you've seen any of your athletes just giving up after training with you.
Yeah, no.
They want to go back. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
They know once they have felt that power, that ability, and once they see it, and it's almost a surprise once they have a breakthrough, and one of the things that's just important is having breakthroughs in performance. We've seen it when people come back to retrain, when they went like to 3 or 4 a week out in nature. There is something about the wilderness. There is something about the barren earth, about Mother Earth, and walking barefoot, and listening to the birds, to the wildlife, to the trees, to the oxygen, to breathing up in the mountains,
True.
that does marvels for the human brain.
Yeah,
We always train it. They come back, we put them through the protocols, and all of a sudden they make a breakthrough. It's wild.
yeah.
It's crazy.
They reconnect. Yeah, they reconnect with nature, because we're coming from there. I think there is a print in our genetics that brings us back there. Like grounding. We've heard about grounding like, what, 20, 25 years ago, and people were just like, what is this? There is no, yeah, that's silly. That's ridiculous. You know what? Technology is very interesting now, because and this is another thing, I'm testing shoes that are made for grounding. So you're permanently grounding.
Cool.
It's incredible. They have layers of electromagnetic conductance, and so you ground with shoes. This is different. So people living in cities and saying, I cannot walk barefoot in the city, now they will be able to do it as well. So technology plus knowledge and neuroscience will bring us to a certain level of competency and abilities. One of the things I wanted to go back on the earlier discussion we had,
Yeah.
you were explaining that we can use our brain to improve our movement, reduce the time of response and things like that. Okay, our brain is not like a chart that you do in corporate presentation, starting where this is the reaction. If we do that, blah, blah, blah. It's not working like that. When your athletes are coming to you, how do you explain them the technology that you're going to use and how they react? And what is the protocol, if you can explain that, what is the protocol of getting them through this process of taking those decisions without going through a graphic or a chart or something?
Yeah, I think the first thing that needs to be addressed here is that we only work with athletes that are professional, that they make a living doing that. Okay, whether they make a living, fine. Because if I have to convince an athlete that the brain handles everything that we do in the quality of their life, I don't want to work with that person.
No.
They have to get it. They have to understand that their brain is completely malleable, that it can be completely rewired, that it can get rid of nasty habits and get the right habits to perform. So we do an initial consultation. We explain, okay, these are the things that happen. Okay, this is what the brain does for sport. Okay, and first I ask him, what do you know what the brain does? What is your interest in what the brain does for you and your sport performance? That way I can actually gauge. There's a lot of athletes. I'll tell you one, Carlos Condit, the natural born killer, who just retired. We've worked with this guy. This guy is very, very knowledgeable on all things neurocognition. He is one of the guys that is well into nature, the grounding, the body movement, the breathing. I mean, this guy is he's a guru when it comes to that in relations to the performance inside the cage. So we start with the consultation. We get an idea of where they stand in terms of knowledge and whatnot. We explain to them these are the assessments that we're going to be doing. We're going to go from the assessment, and we explain the step-by-step process. And like I told you, one of the things that we do in terms of knowledge sharing is that we share knowledge. It's a give and give back situation.
Of course, yeah.
Any feedback. Okay, we learn from them, they learn from us, and the most important thing is that we show those metrics of improvement. Okay, so
are they afraid about it when you come with those metrics and technology? Are they afraid about and they say like, hey, you're gonna screw up with my brain, or not at all? You've never seen that in high performance athletes?
No, because what I said, they're looking for that. They're looking,
okay, perfect.
They're looking for that. They're looking for that training to give them that edge. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because a while back, and I think it still exists, there's a stigma that goes along with that if you're an athlete and you see a sports psychologist or neurocognitive performance coach, people seem to think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Mentally up here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's that stigma there still, but it's surprising when we work at the gyms, like for example, Jackson Wink in Albuquerque, and we'll be training with an athlete there, and there's other athletes at the gym working around and whatnot. They'll stop and they'll start to see what's going on. We've actually have had little semicircles of people just sit down right there on the mats and are looking at what we're doing with the athlete, and they'll raise their hands. Can I ask you a question?
The best promotion.
The trainings to a classroom,
Awesome.
So it's increasing the awareness too, and at the same time, it's educating athletes that are there training to be the best, and giving them an option to say, you know what, I am interested in this training because I think this is very valuable for me. I never realized one of the other things that you asked me, what do athletes, or do they kind of like it? Does it surprise them, or is there a little bit of why not? It's more of a surprise that they realize at first, like, geez,
it's quirky.
800 milliseconds with that, and you tell them, and then they're like, well, where am I supposed to be at? I said, you're supposed to be in 200 to 400 millisecond range with this. Like, oh no, I don't think nobody will ever get to that.
Yeah.
So the self-doubt. I get the 4-minute mile, and then all of a sudden, once they reach that, they're like all puffy. They're like, yeah, I'm back. Oh, yeah. Nobody can touch me. I'm Superman now. I said, and I tell you, you were going to reach this speed, So it's more of a surprise. I could do this all along. It's just I needed the right stimulation for that. It's taking athletes to another level of in terms of not taking too much punishment inside the cage.
Right.
If you can see several punches coming at 100 punches around and only 2 or 3 connect, to me, you've won. You've won. They don't
have that. Yeah, they all don't always have that. I think that you're building up this relationship between the motivational process and all this function that and they don't know. They have a feeling of what is going on, but they don't know what about cognition, learning, reinforcement, visualization. You spoke about it before, and all these motor functions. So when you join both, of course, you make them a super machine, a superhero.
Absolutely. I mean, with the visualization process you just mentioned, if I can take an athlete to visually see in the brain, it doesn't know what's real, whether you're imagining it vividly or it's actually happening. The same neural networks are firing, So you're reinforcing. If I can take you to the same fight 50 times before you actually fight, you got an edge.
Are you going to use Metaverse for that and all these things?
We're talking about that. We're talking about actually having the Metaverse in there, where you actually go in there and you actually training for real.
Yeah.
We already use the Oculus, and there's a beautiful software program. We're already using that. So there's a software program that has all the right metrics that we look at, and so we love it. The first person that we ran it through with was Arlene Blanco. She's the #1 ranked Bellator female MMA fighter and is a championship boxer out of Australia.
Yeah.
She loved it. Yeah.
And of course, Oculus. I've tried to trick my brain using Oculus on an environment like skydiving and trying to do movement at the same time. This is crazy sick. But your muscle, they don't know what's going on, and actually you have a strength that it's unbelievable just because your mind is thinking that you're flying.
Yes.
Absolutely. So the future is there. I agree on that, and I think that with the Metaverse or Oculus or whatever artificial environment we're gonna get in by putting our brain in that perspective, we can actually rewire in a way that they're going to be learning movement and pattern and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's funny, when we first got Arlene on it, and when you put the device on it, everything got the handles, and you actually set up the environment, and our environment is a rooftop. It's got the scoreboards, and you're overlooking the sea. You're overlooking the city, and it was the first time that she ever done this. And I said, well, just don't walk over to this area. Just stay in this area, select the training, and you're going to be done. So she started walking, and she thought she was going to go over the roof. This is how
holy smoke.
And she goes, and you're looking like you're on the mat. You're not going to fall.
Yeah. It's bizarre, but some people react way more than others. I don't know if it's the game of the conscience or not, but it's funny. I love those tools. I love this technology for learning faster, better in the future.
So we're implementing that as part of the protocol. Again, it's a learning process for us as well, but we get all that feedback from the athletes. And it's about getting creative. One of the success factors of how you and everyone else succeeds is obviously, there's a lot of glamour on the innovative ideas, the creative work, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the success is putting in the work, the mundane work, showing up, the testing,
no
escape,
the
testing of stuff,
no shortcut. Yeah. It's there is no shortcut in whatever you do or try to realize. It's true. That's a good reminder. People will think, this is always the same problem. People will think the magic pill, the same thing for training or for rewiring the brain. People think that, they're going to make a tool that rewire your brain so fast that you don't have to go through the whole process of training. Not possible.
Yeah, well, Elon, don't say that to Elon Musk. That's what he's trying to do with Neuralink.
With the chip. Yeah. And actually, yesterday I read that they finally found a new chip that is going to be able to rewrite itself, not only the initial program, but to rewrite itself and to modify according to what is in the environment, like artificial intelligence at his highest level. So he's maybe right on that. We'll see. We probably are not going to be alive when it's going to be that way, but anyway.
Yeah, but
Hey,
for now, we got
crazy.
Got the human body.
That's it. But we need more like you.
And we're going up. We're going up.
Yeah.
In performance. Yeah.
We need way more people like you opening schools and things in every type of sport. We need this to be like at large. So there's so many application and so little specialists like you. So
it's a breaking field. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you. I mean, how many people do what you do? Very.
Oh, it's just because they don't want.
Well,
it's just because they don't want.
Yeah, discipline, But what you condition this thing up here, right? And the body-mind integration. You're a force. It's unstoppable, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Nice words. It's
Absolutely
beautiful. Doctor, it was a pleasure having you. This video and this talk is going to go on my page on AGTV, but also on Spotify. On the podcast is released on Amazon Podcast, Apple, and everything. It was a pleasure. I can spend hours talking to you.
Hours.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you my phone number, and I have a couple of things I want to share with you and discuss more. Absolutely, yes. Doctor, it was a fantastic pleasure having you today. So thank you so much for your time, your knowledge. It's beautiful. We've said a lot and we've said too little.
You're the man. I love that.
You are. Me too.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, guys, for joining. Bye-bye, guys. It was awesome.